Nobody came to my son's birthday. Not one car in the driveway, not one message on my phone. Just the sound of a bounce house squeaking in the backyard and a 5-year-old asking, "Did Grandpa get lost?" I smiled, lied, and told him maybe. That night, I boxed the leftover cake and tried not to cry. 3 days later, my father texted Need, $200 for your brother's graduation. I stared at the screen laughing before I realized I wasn't joking. By the time he showed up at my door with that same tone of authority, he didn't know the locks had changed. My name is Cora. I'm 29, a dental hygienist in downtown Milwaukee and a single mom to the best kid I know. My life is small but steady morning coffee before Lucas wakes a short drive past the lake patients who joke about flossing. I thought stability meant peace. Turns out, it just made me an easier target. For as long as I can remember, my family's motto has been family first, except it never meant me. My father, Gary, is the type who believes control equals love. My mother smooths everything he says like she's ironing wrinkles in a shirt. My brother Tyler is the golden child. My sister Bethany, the baby, who never has to apologize. I'm the dependable one, the good helper, the one who's fine on her own. When I got pregnant with Lucas, my parents said they'd support me in spirit. Translation, they'd gossip to their church friends while I worked double shifts to buy diapers. They came to the hospital, once stayed 15 minutes and left when I started crying. From then on, I stopped expecting softness from them. I just wanted basic decency showing up when it mattered. So when I planned Lucas's 5th birthday, I went overboard. Balloons, a bounce house, a superhero cake that cost a week's groceries. I sent invitations 6 weeks ahead, texted reminders, even offered rides. Of course we'll be there, my mother said. Tyler can't wait to see him, my father added. They never came. The next morning, I checked my phone. No missed calls, no excuses. I told myself maybe something happened. Maybe I'd get an apology. Instead, 3 days later, my phone buzzed, "Need $200 for your brother's graduation party. Send by Friday." That was my father's entire message. No hello, no mention of the party they skipped, just numbers and a deadline like a bill collector. I stared at it for a long time. I thought about the cake I threw out, the candles I saved because Lucas wanted to try again next year. I thought about the last time my father asked me for money, Tyler's car repair. I paid it, of course, because that's what family does, right? But something about that text flipped a switch. At the clinic that day, while scraping plaque and smiling through small talk, I kept replaying his words. Need $200. Not please, not thank you, just need. I realized they'd trained me to be useful, not loved. That night after Lucas fell asleep, I opened my banking app. My hands shook, not from fear, but adrenaline. I typed $1 and in the memo line wrote, "Best wishes." Then I hit send. I waited for regret to hit. It didn't. Instead, there was a strange calm. For once, I hadn't obeyed. I'd drawn a line. I didn't know it yet, but that single dollar would start a war that would end with police lights outside my house. The next morning, my phone started buzzing before sunrise. Cora. My father's text read, "I think there's a mistake. You only sent $1. I stared at the screen, sipping coffee gone cold. "There's no mistake," I typed back. "That's all I could afford after the birthday you skipped." Then I hit send and turned my phone face down. For the rest of the day, silence. Not a single message. I almost convinced myself maybe he understood, maybe he felt embarrassed. Then just before closing time, my phone lit up again. "You're being disrespectful. Family helps family. We'll talk tomorrow." That was never a suggestion. It was a warning. I called Destiny on the drive home. "You know that refinance we talked about," I said. "The house, I did it. His name's off everything." There was a pause, then her sharp inhale. "You actually did it, I did. A month ago. He just doesn't know yet." Then, "Honey," she said, "you've already won more than you think." That night, Lucas fell asleep on the couch watching cartoons. I sat beside him, listening to the quiet hum of the refrigerator, the kind of stillness that used to make me feel lonely, but now felt sacred. I thought about every time my father used that house as leverage. Remember who helped you get that loan. Don't forget whose name's on the papers. Each sentence, another chain. I was done being chained. The next morning, I drove to the hardware store. The man at the counter, gray hair, kind smile, showed me how to change a deadbolt. 20 minutes tops, he said. Easy job if you've got the right screwdriver. Back home, I laid the tools on the kitchen counter. My hands trembled slightly as I unscrewed the old brass plate. Each turn felt like undoing a decade of manipulation. When the new lock clicked into place, I whispered, "My house, my rules." By noon, my father texted again. "Where's the rest of the money I need it today?" I replied, "Sent what I could. Best wishes." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then again. I could almost feel the fury on his end of the phone. When I didn't answer, he escalated. "I'll be by tomorrow at noon. We'll settle this face to face." My stomach twisted. I didn't want Lucas anywhere near that conversation. I texted Destiny, "Can Lucas hang with you tomorrow?" Her reply came in seconds. "Absolutely. Bring him at 11. I'll have cookies waiting." The next morning, I packed Lucas's backpack with snacks and his favorite toy truck. "You're having a play date with Auntie Destiny," I said, kissing his forehead. "I'll pick you up later, okay?" He smiled, completely unaware that by the time I came back home, I'd be waiting for a storm to hit my front porch. And this time, I wasn't planning to run from it. The knock came right on schedule. 3 hard bangs that made the picture frames tremble. "Cora, open this door right now." My father's voice carried the same tone he used when I was 16, and grounded for talking back. I stood in the hallway, fingers brushing the new lock, my heart pounding, but steady. I said, "Open up." I unlatched the chain, cracked the door 2 inches, and met his glare. "You can stop pounding, Dad. Your key won't work." He froze, disbelief flickering across his face before anger took over. "You changed the locks on me. I did. After everything I've done for you, everything you've done to me," I corrected softly. Behind him, my mother lingered on the porch steps, clutching her purse like a shield. Bethany stood near the car pretending to check her phone. Tyler wasn't there, which somehow made it worse. It meant even he didn't want to see this. My father stepped forward, trying to wedge his foot in the door. "You don't shut family out. You didn't seem worried about family when Lucas was blowing out candles alone," I said. He opened his mouth, then shut it. His jaw flexed. "You're being dramatic. We had plans. Your brother's graduation. You had excuses," I said. "You always do." For the first time in my life, I didn't lower my voice. I didn't try to soften the truth. He pointed a finger at me, shaking with rage. "You think you can cut me out? I still have a say in this house." I smiled, small and calm. "Not anymore." I closed the door and turned the deadbolt. The metallic click echoed like punctuation. A minute later, I heard his car door slam, tires screeching down the street. I thought that was the end of it. It wasn't. An hour later, I was cleaning up the kitchen when red and blue lights flickered through the window. My stomach dropped. I stepped onto the porch and saw 2 officers walking up the driveway. "Ma'am," one said, "we got a call from your father. He says you locked him out of his property and may be keeping a child here against court order." The world tilted. What he claims, there's concern for the child's safety. I forced a breath. "You're welcome to check. My son's with a friend right now, but this is my house. I refinanced it months ago. I have the paperwork inside." They followed me in. I laid the manila envelope on the table, deed copies, payment records, the works. One officer nodded slowly. "Everything checks out, ma'am. Looks like your father doesn't live here." When they left, I sank onto the couch, shaking not from fear, but from the absurdity of it all. He'd really called the cops on his own daughter, and I knew deep down he wasn't done yet. By the next morning, I'd stopped expecting peace. When my phone buzzed at 8:04 a.m., I already knew it wouldn't be good news. It was a message from my sister. "Dad said you're in trouble. CPS might stop by today. Just cooperate, okay?" I stared at the screen, disbelief giving way to fury so sharp it made my hands shake. He hadn't just called the cops, he'd called Child Protective Services. By noon, I was pacing the kitchen, the smell of burnt toast lingering from breakfast. When the doorbell rang, my stomach clenched. Through the window, I saw a woman in a navy blazer holding a clipboard, her smile careful but professional. "Ms. Cora Ward," she asked when I opened the door. Yeah, I said, forcing my voice steady. You must be from CPS. Jennifer? She nodded. We received a report of possible neglect, something about leaving your child unattended. My laugh came out half-broken. That's creative. I stepped aside. Come in. As she walked through, I pointed out Lucas's drawings on the fridge, his school photo on the wall, the neatly stacked lunchboxes on the counter. The living room smelled like lemon cleaner and crayons. Lucas is with a friend right now, I said. He's 5. I can give you her number if you want to verify. Jennifer nodded, scanning the living room like she'd seen this scene 100 times. You seem organized, she said finally. Do you know who might have made the report? I almost laughed again. My father. Her brows lifted slightly. That happens more often than you'd think. She closed her notebook. Everything looks fine here. I'll file this as unfounded. The moment the door closed behind her, I exhaled like I'd been underwater. Relief came, but so did something darker, a certainty. My father hadn't made a mistake. He was escalating. Destiny came by that night with takeout. I told her everything from the text to the locks to CPS. She listened, shaking her head. Girl, this isn't family anymore. This is harassment. I know, I said quietly, and I'm done playing defense. The next morning, I called Gregory, the real estate lawyer who'd handled my refinance. I need to make sure my dad can't access anything tied to the old mortgage, I said. He looked over the files, then smiled. You're clean. Everything's in your name alone, but you might want to talk to someone in family law, just to make it official. That's how I met Vanessa. Calm voice, sharp eyes, the kind of lawyer who doesn't flinch at messy families. I told her everything. She didn't look surprised. We'll file for a restraining order, she said. He's already used law enforcement once. You need to protect yourself before he does it again. It took a week to gather everything, police reports, the CPS visit, record screenshots of his messages, even voicemails he left, calling me ungrateful and unstable. Vanessa organized it all into a binder, thick enough to feel like armor. When the court date came, the air outside was heavy and wet, like the sky was holding its breath. I wore the simplest outfit I owned, jeans, a black blouse, and clutched the binder so tightly my knuckles turned white. Destiny sat behind me in the gallery. My father walked in wearing his Sunday suit. My mother trailed behind him, eyes red, refusing to look my way. When the judge entered, everyone stood. The courtroom smelled faintly of old paper and disinfectant. Ms. Ward, the judge said, glancing at our paperwork, you're requesting a restraining order against your father, Gary Ward. Yes, Your Honor. My voice barely wavered. Vanessa took over, laying out each piece of evidence, the text messages, the police report from the lock incident, the CPS document marked unfounded. Gary shifted in his seat, jaw tightening with every exhibit. When the judge asked if he had anything to say, he stood abruptly. This is ridiculous, he said. I was worried about my grandson. She's unstable emotional. She needs family support. Family support, I whispered before I could stop myself. You called the cops on me, Dad. The judge looked at him. Sir, did you call the police and Child Protective Services on your daughter? Yes, but I had reason. Was your reason verified? He hesitated. No, but, the judge raised a hand. That's enough. The silence that followed was so complete I could hear the hum of the fluorescent lights. Vanessa slid a photo across the table, Lucas alone by the birthday cake. This, she said, was the day Mr. Ward and his family were supposed to attend. Instead, he texted her for money. This isn't concern. It's coercion. My father's face went pale. For once, he didn't have words. When the gavel finally hit, the judge's voice was steady. 4-year restraining order granted. Mr. Ward, you are not to contact or visit Ms. Ward or her child directly or indirectly. Any violation will result in arrest. The sound echoed like thunder in my chest. Outside the courthouse, the sky finally opened up. Rain poured down cold and clean. I stood on the steps, letting it soak through my hair. Destiny opened her umbrella, but I waved her off. I want to feel it, I said. She smiled softly. You earned it. That night, my phone buzzed again, but it wasn't him. It was Tyler. I'm sorry, Cora. I didn't know he'd go that far. For a second, I almost replied. Then I didn't. Some doors, once locked, should stay that way. As I checked on Lucas sleeping, his tiny hand resting on his stuffed dinosaur, I realized something. This peace wasn't just relief. It was freedom, the kind you fight for. The restraining order changed everything quietly but completely. No more phone calls, no more texts demanding explanations or money, no more footsteps on my porch pretending to check on us. For the first time in years, mornings felt light. I could make pancakes without my stomach twisting at every buzz of my phone. Lucas would hum to himself while coloring his songs, filling the silence that used to be heavy with dread. Word got around fast in our family. My mother stopped by once, just once, leaving a basket of fruit on the doorstep with a note that said, "I hope you're okay." I never called her back. Tyler texted on Thanksgiving a polite happy holiday, and I replied with a thumbs up. That was enough. A month later, a letter came from CPS confirming the case was officially closed, labeled malicious report. Vanessa called it poetic justice. He used the system, she said, and the system exposed him. Destiny and I celebrated with takeout and cheap champagne. "You realize," she grinned, "you just ended a generational curse, right?" I laughed, then cried, realizing she was right. For the first time, I'd chosen peace over guilt, and it worked. The next week, I repainted the front door, a soft teal. New color, new chapter. Lucas helped, his little hands covered in paint, leaving small streaks along the bottom panel. "Can we invite Grandpa to see it?" he asked, innocent as ever. I knelt beside him. "Maybe one day," I said. "But right now, this is just ours." He nodded, satisfied, already distracted by his brush strokes. That night, after I tucked him in, I sat on the couch, the same spot where I'd once cried over that birthday cake, and smiled. The air smelled faintly of paint and lemon, the house quiet except for the soft hum of the heater. I thought about my father's face in court, the shock of losing control. For so long, he'd mistaken obedience for love. But love isn't control. Love is letting go. And I had finally done it. A year later, we threw another party. Same backyard, same bounce house, same cake. But this time, the table was full. Destiny brought her nieces, my co-workers came with their kids, and Lucas wore the same paper crown, a little bent from last year. When he blew out the candles, I caught myself whispering, "You're loved, baby, always." He looked up and smiled like he already knew. As the sun dipped behind the fence, I glanced at the front gate. No shadows waiting. No footsteps that didn't belong. Just laughter, warm and ordinary. For the first time, it really felt like home. Later, after everyone left, I stood in the doorway, the teal paint glowing under porch light. I thought about everything that had broken me, every silence, every text, every slammed door, and realized none of it owned me anymore. Sometimes peace doesn't come from forgiveness. It comes from boundaries. If you've ever had to choose peace over family, you know exactly what I mean. Tell me your story in the comments. I read every single one. And if you want more stories like this about finding your voice when they try to take it, subscribe. You're not alone.